Good evening. It's 7 o'clock, and we have at least two meetings tonight. One of them is a special meeting of the Urbana City Council, and the second one is the Committee of the Whole. But before we get started, I would like to have a moment of silence for the people who died in Orlando, and that included a member of Charlie Smythe's extended family. So could you please have a moment of silence? Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons, Mr. Brown,
Here.
Mr. Jacobson, Mr. Madigan,
Here.
Ms. Marlin,
Here.
Mr. Roberts,
Here.
Mr. Smythe,
Here.
Mayor Pressing.
What's going
Here.
on with our sound system? Our sound system's a little weird.
I like the reverb or whatever.
Okay, petitions and communications. Oh, I guess I could call these for the council meeting. Scott Dossett, did you want to speak?
Well, I was going to do it when the...
Oh, okay, I see, thank you, I forgot that. Those are all at the committee meeting? Okay, they're all for committee, I'll forget that. Is there anyone who would like to address the Urbana City Council? Okay.
Special meeting.
This is a special meeting of the Urbana City Council. We just have a few things on the agenda.
Their item is not on there's not on the agenda. I know what they're here for yet.
Okay,
Go ahead and do those.
okay. Tamara Chaplin and Angie Estes. Did you want to talk together? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Tamara Chaplin, and I'm a resident here of Urbana. I live on at 209 West California. So I'm here to make a formal complaint about the daily music which is being broadcast from the First United Methodist Church of Urbana, Illinois. That music, as many of you know, is being broadcast from the church each day, Monday through Friday, at 12:15, 3:45, and 6:15 for 15 minutes at each broadcast. And it's also being broadcast on Saturday and Sunday. There have been some slight changes to those hours recently. The broadcast usually consists of hymns, such as Beneath the Cross of Jesus, A Mighty Fortress is Our God, but it can also include patriotic songs like God Bless America or My Country 'Tis of Thee. And the broadcasting of that music, I would argue, is clearly outside of religious worship activities. So I'm requesting that the Urbana City Council will revise the city's noise ordinance in order to uphold our citizens' right to live free from the imposition of noise by others. And the current exceptions to the city's noise ordinance are 16.5.6, which are religious worship activities, and 16.5.7, which are clock towers, bells, and carillons. And because I would argue the Methodist Church's 3 daily broadcasts, or their broadcasts, are not part of religious worship activities, because no services are occurring at these times, they do not fit the 16.5 exception. Since the Methodist Church broadcasts emanate from a bell tower, however, they might be considered an exception to the noise ordinance. However, and if you'll just bear with me, Section 16.2 states, "It shall be unlawful and a violation of this chapter for any person to generate, produce, create, broadcast, manufacture, maintain, or cause or facilitate the generation, production, creation, broadcast, manufacture, or maintenance of any loud and raucous noise when such noise is audible from any," and this is section 5 of 16, "religious house of worship, affiliated building associated with any such religious house of worship, or the grounds of any religious house of worship or affiliated building associated with any such religious house of worship." So as we can see, according to the city's noise ordinance itself, these broadcasts are unlawful, but the current ordinance contradicts itself, and therein is the problem. First, it states that religious houses of worship cannot broadcast noise. Then it lists church bells and carillons as exceptions to the noise ordinance. And I would argue it needs to be revised. So I'm formally requesting that the City Council revise the noise ordinance so that it ensures that the citizens of Urbana can live in a community that is free from the imposition of noise by other citizens and organizations. I would suggest that the Methodist Church be subject to the same requirements that other groups are subject to when they wish to produce noise heard by the community at large. They should be required to get a permit for a specific day and a specific length of time, just as other organizations do. And I would also just want to underline that the issue is not whether we like or dislike what it is that they're broadcasting. The issue, I think, and I hope you will agree, is whether it should be lawful for any organization to impose its broadcast on the citizens of the community. Because I would say that the original premise of the noise ordinance was meant to give our citizens the right to
You
live
have 1
unobstructed
minute.
by the imposition of noise from other people and organizations. In other words, citizens have a right to not have the noise of others imposed on them. So I just request that you revise that noise ordinance such that churches and bell towers are permitted to broadcast for timekeeping purposes only or to call their congregants to worship. So I have no objection with them playing that music Sunday morning when they're calling their congregants to worship. But at other times, I would request that change. Thank you for your time and attention.
Bill?
I just wanted to look at one thing. When you were reciting the ordinance, you said it right. It said when noise is audible from any church, et cetera, and that was just one in a list of a lot of places where the noise shouldn't be audible from: parking lots, hospitals, schools, parks. So it's not that we were outlawing specifically noise from churches. Mm-hmm. So in that way, it's not inconsistent. But I think your point is well taken, and the noise portion of the bells is something we should consider. But it should be considered as noise, not as some. I mean. That's my main point, is that it seemed like you were reading it as the noise being created by the church was outlawed, but it's the noise audible from any of these places.
No, it's the noise audible. I stand corrected.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I suppose we'll look at this or else get a better interpretation of our current existing noise ordinance and see
Yeah.
What's permitted.
I just find it very disruptive as someone who works at home to be subjected to that on a regular basis several times a day. It's very disruptive. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Angie Estes?
Hello. Thanks for taking the time to listen to me. Since I actually wrote the 2-page letter that I think all of you should have a copy of, and I think that Tamara was actually referring to much of it when she was writing, I won't take up your time by simply repeating or reading to you what's in the letter. There are just a couple of things that I'd like to emphasize, though. And I think one is that I love living in Urbana. And I moved here a few years ago, actually from Columbus, Ohio, because when I first came to Urbana, I was taken with it. And one of the things that I love most about it is how quiet it is, and peaceful, and calm. And the fact that it has a noise ordinance is also one of my favorite things. Because as a teacher, I have almost all of my life lived around students. Not that students are the only people who make noise, but I've had a fair share of living in areas where noise has been a problem. And one of the things that I look forward to, in fact, when I travel to other places, and that I often say when I'm on the plane coming into the airport is, I can't wait to get home. It's going to be so quiet there. 2 months ago, when I came home after being gone for a couple of months, the church bells from the Methodist Church had started up, and at first I thought, well, that's interesting. Haven't heard that before. And then when I sat down to lunch, and they were playing, and then when I was working in the yard, in my garden, listening to the birds, and they were playing again in the afternoon, that was annoying. And then when I sat down at night to have dinner, and they were playing again, I found it unbearable, which is why I decided to make the formal complaint. As Tamara just said, I think that one of the things that we expect when we live with other people is that we expect there's going to be a fair amount of noise that we all make. We have kids in the yard, we run the lawnmower. Between certain hours, we have neighbors who come over and have dinner, and we expect that sort of thing. But I think that the regular broadcasting of any kind of sound from any organization, unless they have a special permit, once a year, if you want to celebrate whatever it is you want to celebrate and you have a permit to do that within certain hours, I think that's terrific, and everyone should have the right to do that. I guess the only thing that I really wanted to add or emphasize about the noise ordinance is that the noise ordinance itself, back to that section 16.2, where it says it shall be unlawful to broadcast, I just find it very interesting that whoever wrote the noise ordinance in section 5 found it important to say that it could not be broadcasted in addition to all of the other places from religious houses of worship or anything affiliated with that. It seems to me that clearly part of the original intention of the ordinance when it was written was to prohibit religious organizations, along with any other organization, from imposing their beliefs, their music, whatever it is, on others. I think this is also part of, like, as a country, what we value. And I have found that particularly disturbing. Not that I don't like hymns. I was raised Southern Baptist. In fact, that's part of the problem, is that I know all of the hymns. And I frequently, and I'm a retired teacher. I work at home. I'm a writer. The times when my head should be filled with other things, I often find myself singing along to the hymns, which is extremely disruptive to my work. So again, it's not particularly about hymns. I feel the same if the rock band down the street is practicing, and sometimes they have been practicing at regular hours. And fortunately, our police department is very, very good about issuing warnings so that doesn't occur. But I do think it's important that I think this was part of the original intention, is just to make sure that we don't have these regular kinds of interruptions and interferences from other organizations. And again, I think traditionally that church bells have been used, and still are, in virtually all countries, to call people to worship, or maybe to announce that a worship service is going to happen, which is perfectly correct. Is that my timer? Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
Charlie?
Yeah, just to bring you up to date, Jim Simon couldn't be here tonight. I've begun a conversation with him. He's of the opinion that the noise ordinance probably does apply, but he wants to think about it some more, and we may need to tweak it with a couple of tiny words. And I've suggested a few things to him to make it perfectly clear. So, and I think I sent you guys a copy of that. But Jim hasn't gotten back to me
That would be excellent.
on his thinking.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
I'll expect he'll be back later in the week.
Okay, great.
Dennis and then Diane.
Yeah, I think I support your thought. I'm within hearing distance of it. I've noticed it also when I was working in the yard, and I kind of wondered why it was going on so often. So I think that there's a way of resolving this. But thanks for bringing it to the
Great.
attention of
Yeah.
everybody.
Thank you.
Diane?
Just curious, is this a relatively new phenomenon? 2 months?
2
Okay.
months, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there, let me see here. We have the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. No, we don't. I'm looking at the wrong agenda. Thought there was something wrong there. Okay, ordinance number 2016-05-033, an ordinance amending Urbana City Code, Chapter 14, Section 14-7 regarding the schedule of fees, subsection A, liquor licenses. And we've obviously separated the liquor licenses from the other fees for Mr. Madigan.
So state law requires me to recuse myself from this agenda item.
Okay. All right, Beth Beatty, you want to say anything?
Good evening. Yeah, so this just passes a 1% increase for liquor license.
You've had this before. This is, we had to have them on file for 30
For
days.
30 days,
For 30
for
days.
review and comment.
Any questions? Mr. Roberts?
So did you get any feedback from those people who have the licenses?
I got one feedback from Alan Strong, and he said he really likes the pre-printed licenses. It's very convenient.
So that wasn't even a question about the cost. It was
wasn't.
about something else.
No, there hasn't been any complaints or questions.
Okay.
And everybody's been turning them in because they're due
Yeah,
Wednesday.
yeah, we kept it pretty low.
Yeah, reasonable.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll move
I'll
that we
move.
pass.
Okay. Motion by Roberts, seconded by Smythe. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
That motion carries. Next, ordinance number 2016-05-034, an ordinance amending Urbana City Code, Chapter 14, Section 4-7, 14-7, regarding the schedule of fees, subsections B through P, licenses and permits, excluding liquor. Actually, these came from the committee. Mr. Madigan is back. Any discussion, any questions on this one? Diane?
Well, I'll just say it because I think I've said it every year I've been on the council, and that is I do not understand why we charge 25 cents an hour for parking in the parking garage in a covered facility and pay someone to collect quarters for parking. I just think we ought to be looking at our parking fee schedule for this particular structure and also our revenues and costs for the civic center as well.
I agree with you, and that is on finance's agenda for this coming fall. We just rolled out mobile meter this year, so we wanted to get some feedback on the revenues that are coming in from there to try to kind of see where we're at, what meters are really being utilized and the cost. And we're also, I know staff at the Public Works Department, we've been in discussions about the garage and possible changes to it as well. And all of that will come later on this year, this
Okay.
fall.
Thanks.
Okay, any other discussion? Is there a motion? Mr. Brown?
Just another clarification on the ambulances. Do you know?
Would you like Brian to come up here?
Sure.
Yeah.
They're included in this, right?
Yes.
Hi, Brian. Could you explain again which stations have ambulances and do they rotate between Carl and Christie?
Yeah, we house an
Or,
ambulance
what is it?
24/7, 365 right here at Station 1. And the 15th of each month, the ambulance service changes. So one month it will be Carl's ambulance service, the next month it's Presence. And when we have Carl's ambulance service, then Presence is at Champaign Station 5. And it alternates back. So they'll have one hospital service and we'll have the other, and then they trade.
Okay, so this is the only station that houses them.
Well, additionally, when Arrow or Carl is in Urbana, they'll put an ambulance at the U of I station, Station 4. Presence doesn't put an ambulance there. They'll usually stage an ambulance. Most of the time, it's in the parking lot at the corner of Illinois and Lincoln.
Okay. I've seen them in. I've seen Presence at Vet Med before too.
Yeah, that's their spot.
So I don't know. Probably adding an ambulance fee isn't going to encourage new ambulance companies to come, but it might. If the third one came in, would we just rotate them in like 4 months? Would you think?
Yeah, I guess we'd approach that when that happened.
I guess my thought is if we had more than 2, then theoretically we should probably lower the fee to generate the same amount annually, because we're trying to cover our costs of providing the space and
Yes.
and the MedCAD.
Yep.
So this combined expected revenue between the 2 services should really be kind of an expected annual revenue. Does that make
Yes.
sense? No matter how many services there are. Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Mike?
Yeah, so just real quickly on this, Brian, I really appreciate all your work on this. The meeting we had to discuss the whole issue, and I appreciate all of that very much. I understand the goal here, but I just I can't support it just because of the extreme nature of the increase at one time. I think if we were going to do something like this, we ought to step it in over time. And, $23,000 isn't going to make or break the city, but it is a significant cost that will be passed on for the most part. And I understand they're getting a valuable service from the city, but I think for the sake of the businesses that are involved, I think stepping it up would have been a better approach.
Okay. Any other discussion, or is there a motion? Dennis?
I'm just going to say then that since the city's offering shelter for the equipment and parking space for them, there's got to be some kind of reciprocal expense that's collected. And if you determine that that's the appropriate amount and substantiate it, I guess I can believe you. So, but thank you for doing that. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'll make a motion that we accept ordinance 2016-05-034, which affects the schedule of fees, subsection B through P, licenses and permits, excluding liquor.
Okay, motion by Roberts, seconded by Smythe. Any other discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Miss Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
I'm still here.
Well, I don't know if you was recused or not. Mr. Madigan?
No.
Okay, that motion carries. Social services? CD's going to give a report on social services. Are you still waiting for the... Okay.
So we're waiting on the allocations. That's what
Okay.
hoping to get done tonight.
So you're not ready to give the report then?
I think we provided all the information we can at this point, all the updates, and we need the actual group decision-making on the allocations to occur, and then that can be added to the budget with the specific amounts and
Okay.
which agency will be funded, how much, and then we will be able to identify which ones can be funded by CDBG, Township, or General Fund once we have
Okay.
that list.
We put the total already in the budget, yes, in
Yeah.
both the township and the city.
Yeah,
Charlie.
I would suggest just putting this on the agenda at next week's regular council meeting.
Okay. If we have it.
If it's a committee?
We better
No,
get it.
council. Next week, okay.
Well, this is a special council meeting, so next week would be a regular council meeting. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on. I have 2 appointments. They're extremely controversial. Bill Brown for library and Beth Scheid for library, especially Bill Brown.
Second.
Okay, motion by Smythe, seconded by Marlin. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Congratulations, Bill, and thank you.
Hey, should you recluse yourself?
And there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.